Good evening again, everyone. And of course, it is an absolute pleasure to be back with you for DMs with PM Season 3. Of course, we're in a brand new year. We're well into the month of January, but I don't think it's too late to say Happy New Year and, of course, wish everyone the best for 2026 and hope that we can achieve as much as we possibly can. Like I said, it is a pleasure to be back with you. And of course, we want to take the opportunity to welcome you, the viewers and listeners of DMs with PM. Special thank you to our sister station, partner stations, Power FM, Star FM, We FM, GBN, Fusion FM, Vibes FM, and of course to you, the viewers on YouTube and Facebook. Welcome to yet another season. And of course, we hope this one will be filled with loads of excitement, keeping you informed with what's happening with our nation, and of course, making sure you have the opportunity to ask your questions directly to our Prime Minister. Well, he's back in studio with us, so we're going to jump right into it because you know how quickly time flies. PM, welcome back. It's good to be here again for Season 3. We're in 2026.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Happy New Year to everyone who's listening and viewing. I'm excited about 2026 and I wish everyone a healthy and successful 2026. If you lost any loved ones in 2025 or for the beginning of 2026, I express obviously sympathies, condolences to you. But if you have life, continue to cherish the memories of those loved ones that you lost. And I look forward to having an engaging, productive season.
I think the viewers and listeners share the same sentiment. We are definitely looking forward to that. So much was achieved in terms of, you know, the information, and we saw things being done as a result of some of the questions posed, some of the concerns folks had, and this year we're looking to do even much more.
Yes. We in Cabinet on Monday, the pastor admonished us not to slacken the pace. And so we will certainly take that advice and continue to make sure that we gallop along with pace to continue working for the citizens of Grenada.
Okay. Well, like you said, we're not slackening the pace at all, so we jump in right into it because we got so much questions that folks, I'm sure they would like to ask. And one of them, of course, was we had the Drug Abuse Amendment Bill, the cannabis legislation, definitely making the rounds on social media today. Lots of discussions on it, and I think it's imperative that at least we open up with with that because it's definitely happening out there. So we have a couple questions for you surrounding that because as much as the discussion is there, lots of folks are not too clear as to what it means. And we want to provide as much clarity and context to it as much as possible. So one of the questions we have is, what prompted the government to introduce this amendment to the Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act at this time?
So I think to answer, we have to go back a little. It is happening now after years of work. In the case of the NDC administration, since we assumed office in 2022, we established a Cannabis Commission. The goal of the commission was in fact to engage in extensive consultation to determine the way forward in relation to the decriminalization and legalization of marijuana. I should go further back and point to that in 2021, the NNP administration had in fact tabled a draft amendment to the Drug Abuse Control and Prevention Act as well, which is also seeking to decriminalize the use and possession of small quantities of marijuana. And prior to that, in 2018, the Carriacou Secretariat had commissioned a study into whether marijuana should be decriminalized or not in the region. And the overwhelming recommendation was that it should be decriminalized. Separate from those sort of broad-based policy initiatives, I think the reality is that worldwide there has been the acceptance and significant policy shift as to how the marijuana plant is viewed. The traditional thinking for decades was that it should be a criminal offense to grow, possess, use, trade in marijuana. I don't need to get into the historical reasons why that was done. But increasingly, I think more progressive societies came to the conclusion that the penalization, the criminalization of the plant and its growth and possession was actually not serving a useful purpose. In many instances, young men and women who were having their lives destroyed not merely from the use or the abuse of marijuana, but actually from the significant criminal sanctions that came with it. So we wanted to make sure that we looked at this objectively. We promised in our manifesto that we would in fact decriminalize and legalize marijuana. And this is just step one in that process. We simply could not rush because we do appreciate that there are in fact downsides to the abuse of marijuana. And we needed to make sure that we got it right in terms of things such as at what age would we permit legally someone to be able to have marijuana in their possession or use marijuana without facing criminal sanction. And policy-wise, we've come down on 21 years. So the truth is, based on the schedule that we were working with, we were actually seeking to have this bill passed as early as the summer of 2025 last year. But with legislation, there's always a lot of back and forth, a lot of consultation. There was extensive debates about the age, for example. Extensive debates about whether it should be 1 plant, 2 plants, 3 plants, 4 plants. Debates about whether it should be 40 grams, 56 grams. So all of that takes a lot of time, and we wanted to make sure that we were not rushing simply because we had imposed a deadline on ourselves, and that we would be satisfied that we had taken the views of all those concerned. So this is the first stage. It is just passed in the lower house. It has to go to the Senate. It has to be debated there. Hopefully we expect it will be passed in the Senate. Then the Governor General will give her assent. It will be gazetted, and then it will become law.
What primary objectives does the government hope to achieve through these amendments?
Okay. So the first one, and I think significantly, is to no longer have a situation where people are arrested, prosecuted, fined, or jailed for having small quantities of marijuana in their possession for personal use, for religious use, for medicinal or therapeutic use. So that's the first thing. And this is significant because under our current law, if you have 1 ounce of marijuana, you could be arrested, prosecuted, fined. And if you have a plant, if you have the seeds, if you have any marijuana-based product, they're all unlawful and they all come with criminal sanctions. So the first objective is to in fact permit, without fear of legal sanction, that is arrest, prosecution, fine, or jail, or a criminal record, small quantities of marijuana, specifically 56 grams of the cannabis itself, 15 grams of the resin, and similarly having the pipe or anything that the apparatus or equipment that is associated with marijuana use. Similarly, that is also criminal. The aim is to also get rid of a criminal sanction there. The second objective is to allow the Rastafarian community in particular, who use marijuana in their religious rituals and ceremonies and their sacraments, to be able to do so without also criminal sanction, because currently that also is prohibited, and just like any Rastafarian and non-Rastafarian, if they have it in their possession, they are also liable for criminal sanctions. The third objective is, because we are seeking to now decriminalize this use, possession of these small quantities, persons who were previously convicted for having those small quantities in their possession now have the right to apply to the Rehabilitation of Offenders Board and to seek to get their criminal record expunged or spent, so that going forward they do not have this criminal record. The fourth thing that we are hoping to achieve is to allow marijuana-based products for medicinal purposes. So whether it's oils, whether it's medicines, tablets, what have you, once it is prescribed by a medical practitioner. And we've had countless stories of persons with chronic illness, chronic pain management issues, who have indicated that they've tried everything else and the only thing that works to ease the pain and so on is marijuana-based products. So we want to be able to give them the ability to use those products once prescribed by a licensed medical doctor, again, without the fear of criminal sanction. And because currently doctors cannot prescribe these things because it will be a criminal offense for you to have it. And that means the ability to both bring it into the country and the ability to use it within the country. But I think the most significant thing really is to begin to change the attitude towards the cannabis plant, and to see this as an opportunity for us to actually create an actual industry based on the medicinal, therapeutic, industrial, commercial uses of the plant. That is really the critical thing that we are aiming at. And then finally, it's important for me to say the amendments are also designed to protect the young, to prohibit public smoking of marijuana, and particularly to prohibit the public smoking of marijuana in and or wrong educational institutions. So
Wait.
those are the primary objectives of the amendment.
I like your passion. Like, listening to you would swear you're a heavy marijuana consumer. But can you explain the licensing system for cultivation, production, import, export, and supply will work in practice? Because, you know, I'm getting this idea that people think it's just ad hoc. You
No.
just,
Right. So I think it's important to say that to a large extent, we are now starting. So I want to emphasize that we are now starting. So regulations are going to have to be developed, written out, published by the Minister with responsibility for health. And you emphasize here that it's the Minister with responsibility for health because, as I said, we are seeking to promote medicinal, therapeutic, commercial, industrial use of the plant, which requires research, etc. So we have not yet fully developed the licensing regime. We are in the process of the consultations and creating the consultancy, contracting the consultant that will engage in the consultancy so that we can develop that framework. But we did not want to wait till we got to the point where we had what I would call industrial, commercial, medicinal, industrial policy and laws fully in place before starting to address those issues. And the reason for this is because we were facing the conundrum where, a simple example, when the Rastafarian members wanted to go out and educate the public about the marijuana, what the plant looks like, etc. If they had a plant in their possession, they were liable to be arrested and charged. So we had to begin the transition of saying the attitude needs to change. We need to prevent a situation where people with one spliff or a plant or so, even if they are simply trying to educate the public, faces the risk of criminal sanction. So the early stages, the things we are doing, the second part of it is to actually develop the licensing system because we have to appreciate that there is always the risk of the abuse and the misuse. So it is going to be a licensing regime where persons will have to apply, be granted a permit, and then there'll be strict conditions that would be associated with things like growing, processing, research, trade, export, development of marijuana-based products.
Well, of course, we also have to take into consideration our young people,
Yes.
young men as well as women. Why does the bill prohibit the smoking or use of cannabis in or near public spaces, workplaces, public transport, school premises, etc.? You can break that down for us?
Yeah, I think two issues. One, to protect our young persons, and two, to protect public health. So it's important for people to appreciate that smoke is something that goes into the atmosphere. And if I don't smoke, I should not be subjected to your smoke. So we are giving those who want the ability to smoke for recreational purposes in small quantities the ability to do so without facing criminal sanction. But we're also saying to you, you need to be considerate of persons who do not smoke. And therefore, you smoke in your private home or in private premises. You do not do so in public because you are necessarily going to be inconveniencing and in instances, to some extent, getting into what I would call the private space of other persons in public. That's one. Second, and you see we've indicated that the age is 21 years and above. It is still prohibited for persons under 21. All of the medical experts, including our chief medical officer who's on the cannabis committee, the mental health experts have argued significantly that the use of marijuana and the use of drugs in general on young brains could potentially retard the development and have negative impacts on the mental health of young persons. And so we want to ensure that young persons are given the opportunity to continue to live healthy lives until they are older and they can then choose for themselves. So we do not want persons exploiting our youth. We do not want persons targeting our young people. And we want to be able to protect our young people as much as possible from the misuse, abuse, or the harmful effects of marijuana. And hence the reason for prohibiting public use of marijuana and for public use on our own educational institutions.
Speak to us about the $300 fixed penalty system to be implemented. How would it be implemented and enforced?
Essentially the same way in which you enforce traffic offences. If you found smoking in public places, the police would issue you with what is called a ticket. You'd have a certain time by which to pay the ticket. If you don't pay the ticket, then you'd face the normal consequences of the law. But I want to emphasize this, and I think this is important for me to say. The fact, having this policy shift, as you know, there are persons who would have resisted and who would have felt that we should continue the traditional approach. So it's also important, I think, for persons who intend to or will benefit from not having the fear of a criminal prosecution from your personal use of marijuana to also respect the rights of others. And that means respecting the rights of persons who do not wish to inhale marijuana smoke. So very few of us are homeless, right? We have access to private premises. And therefore, if you want to smoke, when the bill becomes law, you should smoke in private premises or in private, communal private premises where others want to smoke as well. We will take, and we will ask that law enforcement take a zero tolerance to public smoking. Because, as I said, we have to respect the fact that there are many people, if not maybe the vast majority of persons, who do not smoke and who do not wish to be subjected to inhaling marijuana smoke publicly. So we hope we don't get to the point where there is disregard for this and where we go back to a situation where, you know, the government is issuing, or the law enforcement is issuing a lot of tickets. That again goes back to tie up the judicial system. So we believe we found a happy medium, and we're obviously trying to encourage persons to comply with the law.
Okay. The bill requires the creation of legislation for a regulated cannabis industry. So what timelines and priorities are envisioned for this next phase?
Right. So as I said, we're in the process of securing the actual consultant that will do the framework. We expect that in 90 days, that framework, give or take, should be available. And then I think we'll be looking at working for the remainder of the year to get us to the point where we have draft legislation that is available to go to Parliament to actually create the industry.
Okay. And on that same light, in terms of, you know, opportunities, what opportunities do you foresee for local farmers, entrepreneurs, researchers, etc.?
Right. Well, I would say from, you know, in food they have it from farm to table. I think for the plant we'll take a similar approach from farm to whatever the ultimate retail use is. The Minister for Agriculture, you know, in Parliament today presented an exhaustive list of potential employment and career opportunities in the field. So I think the first thing obviously is the growth. As it stands now, the growth of any marijuana plant is illegal. So we certainly think that there's an opportunity for large-scale commercial growth to start with, and whether it's for the Rastafarian community or farmers. We think there's a significant opportunity for research and development, and for persons to create products that are marijuana-based, and it doesn't have to be just medicinal or therapeutic. The fiber of the plant could be used for all kinds of industrial applications, from paper to cloth, etc. So we certainly want to be able to encourage that. We believe there are significant medicinal and therapeutic uses that could be made of the plant. And so we see all of those as opportunities for commercial and industrial exploitation. And certainly in the context of tourism and all of those kinds of things, we believe, especially with the therapeutic, with wellness and so on, we think there are opportunities for all of this to be exploited by our farmers, by our entrepreneurs, by our financiers, as the case may be. And we are, in a sense, coming very late to the party. Places like St. Vincent, St. Kitts, Antigua, Jamaica, Barbados have already gone ahead. But we do think it provides an opportunity for regional cooperation as well in that regard. So we really do think it's and as I said, our National Sustainable Development Plan explicitly made reference to this. So we think the opportunities are boundless. It's a billion-dollar industry.
And finally, what message does the government want to convey to citizens as this legislative reform moves forward?
Well, I think first is a recognition that we are prepared to stand by our word. We campaigned on this. We said we would deliver it, and we've taken a very deliberate and measured approach to doing it. It's stage one. We have to get to stage two, stage three, as the case may be. So I think it's first a recognition that we are good for our word. That's one. Second, this is not an easy thing, because we know that there's still significant pockets of the population that do not think it should be decriminalized or legalized. And we understand that is primarily based on the potential harmful effects of it. And we respect that. It's part of the reason why we've taken a very slow and measured approach to it. But I think it's important for us to recognize that public policy making cannot simply be a situation where when you oppose something or you think it's harmful, that the only public tool available is to criminalize it. Right? Because criminalizing things has a particular consequence. It means the state's resources have to be used to enforce that. And the Minister for Agriculture gave statistics in Parliament which said over the last 5 years as much as 640 plus persons have been arrested for marijuana-related offenses. That's a significant number of persons, significant state resources. We could use a lot of those resources in education and in other aspects. So what we are seeking to do is to let the public know that we are not going to simply continue governing grain in a manner where simply because That is what has been done in the past. We will continue with it, even if it's not working, even if it's not successful. So we are about change where change is necessary. And even where change is difficult, we have the gumption to stick to it, to see through, and to make sure that we act in the overall best interests of the citizens.
That was a mouthful, quite a lot of information disseminated. So we hope that the viewers and listeners will leave it a better understanding as what it is seeking to do, and of course how it will benefit us on a whole. We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be heading to the streets for DMs from the street. Quick break, and we'll be right back.
Yo, Grenada, are you ready for the biggest vibe this January? On Saturday, January 24th at 3 p.m., Morne Rouge Playing Field is turning up as the National Celebrations Committee hosts the Independence Youth Expo. Come through and check out fresh local brands, cool art, nutritious drinks, snacks, and confectionaries. It's all about our young creators showing out. Catch dope performances from Spiceland dancers, Destiny on Steel Band, Zeal, Nate, Lil Cello, and Young Cody from Carriacou. Also at the event will be DJ Snappy, Selecta Jamie, and Tristan Charles keeping the energy lit. And guess what? It's free. So squad up and roll out to support our youth and celebrate the future. Mark your calendar. Saturday, January 24th, 3 p.m. Morne Rouge Playing Field. Don't sleep on this. It's the Independence Youth Expo.
Welcome back once again to all our viewers and listeners to DMs. We have your DMs from the street, and this week we are heading to Big Parish St. Andrew. The Grenville Secondary School and the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School students will be posing their questions to the PM this week. So let's join Norris with our DMs from the street.
Welcome back to Season 3 of DMs with PM. I'm yours truly, Norris Francois. Today we are in Big Parish and we are doing 2 schools in the Big Parish, SAS and GSS. Let's listen to the teachers and students of this beautiful country. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Norris Francois. Welcome to DMs on the Streets. What's your name?
Kimari.
All right. Ask the Prime Minister your question.
Now, Honorable Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, in recent times I've noticed that hospitals and medical centers have been facing a shortage in resources. What do you, along with the Ministry of Health, plan to do to help solve this issue in the best interest of the people of Grenada? Now, my second question is, the teaching industry is one of the most important industries in Grenada, as it helps to nurture our young minds, leading to a brighter, better future for the country of Grenada. Now, teaching has become a bit of a scarce occupation in these recent times, as no young people are really enticed to become teachers nowadays. What steps do you think the government can take to help introduce new talent, as well as keep all the older or more experienced teachers in that line of work? Also, how can we get more, let's say, specialized educators in fields such as mathematics, science, chemistry, and so on, to come into this field and to see what effect it would have on student outcomes?
Wow, the students have started off with a bang. Those are some tough questions. So I will start first with the health centers, medical stations, and so on. Well, first of all, we met many of the health stations, medical stations in poor physical condition, and we have embarked upon renovating many of them, and that is ongoing. So that's step one, improving the physical amenities of the stations. Step two, as you are also aware, we do have challenges with human resources, specifically the number of nurses in particular in the country. And so some of the short-term measures we are taking, for example, includes the importation of nurses. We have nurses here from Cuba, we have nurses from Ghana. We are seeking to keep many of the nurses in Grenada. That is why the government chose to pay the nurses an honorarium pretty much since we've gotten into government of $500 extra per month every month. That's $6,000 a year. And we've done so similarly with the doctors. We pay them an extra $1,000 per month, which is $12,000 a year, as a means of incentivizing them to remain so that we can have more resources. We have also been granting significant scholarships to nurses and doctors so they can study at St. George's University, so that we have greater supply of nurses and doctors. So for example, as recently as this January, we agreed with St. George's University to have 30 four-year medical degree programs. That's significant because traditionally the scholarship numbers are like 3 or 4. So we are talking here about a much more significant number of persons getting scholarships at significant cost to the taxpayers of Grenada, so that we can beef up our resources in terms of nurses and doctors. Our procurement of medical supplies and so on are partly done through the OECS health procurement system, and we continue to improve our inventory, improve our stock take to make sure that we can meet the needs of the community in the medical and health centers. We are also beginning to better organize patient records, and we are hoping that over time we can digitize health records so that nurses and doctors have greater access to this. There are a number of other things we are doing in the community, even in mental health. We have community mental health nurses who go to the community to treat persons who suffer from mental health issues, because we recognize sometimes the stigmatization that comes with having to go to the mental hospital at Mongay is also sometimes a challenge in and of itself. So that's just some of the things we are doing from a medical perspective in terms of primary health care. There are lots of other initiatives that the Ministry of Health is undertaking. In relation to our teachers, the Ministry of Education is pursuing a number of policies. Yes, teacher training is critical. That's one way to improve the outcome of teachers, and particularly in some of the specialist areas such as math. It's an area that we've been giving specific focus and attention to. The Ministry of Education has held a symposium on this issue and is rolling out a policy to support that. We're also trying to ensure that the specialist math teachers can actually go to the schools, particularly at the primary school level, and ensure that they can strengthen the delivery of the instructional methods for teaching of math, particularly in our primary school. And this is critical because we believe if we don't tackle it at the primary school level, by the time we get to secondary schools, it is too late. The premise of the question as to whether we can attract persons to come into the teaching industry, I may disagree with a little. I think almost every year new persons coming to the teaching industry, some stay, some move on. But teachers actually, I wish we could always pay them more, but they do have, they are generally in the context of the public service well paid. There are significant benefits that they have under the collective bargaining agreement. They can get scholarships, training, etc. There are increments for when they improve their academic performance, and we are aiming to have all teachers within the system trained. So yes, we do need more specialist teachers, particularly in the field of science, technical and vocational education, and we are working to ensure that we can encourage teachers to pursue training and specialist studies in those areas so that they can better come back and improve the outcomes for students in those areas. Okay. I hope I've covered all of the questions that Mr. Rennie asked.
I think you did. We're heading back to the streets.
Welcome to DMs on the Streets. My name is Norris Francois. What's your name?
I'm Shamaika Lindsay.
All right, Shamaika, ask the Prime Minister your question.
Prime Minister, I understand that there is an ongoing discussion between the Caribbean countries and the U.S. about the U.S. having asylum seekers reside in Caribbean islands. What is your position on letting those asylum seekers into our nation, and what would be the possible implications of that?
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. It's not asylum seekers. Asylum seekers have a specific meaning in law. So the persons the United States are asking us to consider taking, we are calling them third country nationals, meaning they are not citizens of the United States, neither are they citizens of Grenada, but they are citizens of other countries who are in the United States either illegally, as in enter the United States not through the proper legal process, or having entered through the proper legal process, either overstayed their time in the United States, and therefore the immigration authorities are seeking to remove them from the United States. So it's called third country nationals, and they're essentially transferees. The implications, if we were to consider taking such persons, are both good and potentially bad. I will start with the bad ones. Potentially, if we take large numbers of persons, then our economy, or social, or health and education systems could be overrun, because if we have numbers that are just too large for small islands, then we simply would not be able to accommodate them. Second, if we do not have agreement with the United States, where the United States is paying for their transfer and providing sufficient funding for us to house them, etc., then also that is bad because our fragile economies will simply not be able to accommodate them. And then the third risk would be security concerns. Certainly from Grenada, and I think most of the Caribbean and OECS countries, we would not want to accept anyone who has any criminal record, except for perhaps entering the United States illegally or having overstayed their time. And I would say except for those two things, and in particular overstaying their time, because even Grenadians and other Caribbean nationals who sometimes go to the United States stay longer than they're permitted to stay. So we would not want to have any criminals. Generally, Grenada and the OECS territories are very safe countries, and so we would not want to have persons here knowing that they have a criminal record. So that's the downside. The upside, or potential positive benefits, are one, if we can agree and negotiate with the United States so that we are paid to take some of these persons, then it gives us an opportunity to have cash injection into the economy. Second, there are certain sectors in the country, particularly agriculture and construction, where we have significant shortage of labor, even in the hospitality sector. You speak to a lot of contractors, they're not able to find workers. You speak to farmers, it is very difficult to get persons to work in agriculture. So a potential advantage, and which is primarily why we are looking at this, is that we may be able to source workers from these third country nationals to specifically come to Grenada for a period of time and work in those particular areas. So that would be one of the significant benefits of such an initiative. And then the third part I would say is humanitarian. We have to appreciate that the Caribbean itself and Grenada is an island of migrants. There are no indigenous persons currently living in Grenada. The French committed genocide on killing the Amerindians that they met here. And since then, everybody who's come to this island, whether we're from descendants of Africans, descendants of Indians, Chinese, Middle Eastern persons, or Caucasian, have all come to this island. And we, in turn, all migrate. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of Grenadians in London, Canada, the United States, in Trinidad and Tobago. Even when they were building the Panama Canal, many Grenadians went to these places. So we too migrate, we too go to other countries. And sometimes when persons are looking to improve their lives and make a better living, we too in Grenada need to consider that and potentially give them an opportunity to make a better living by being able to stay in Grenada for a period of time as well.
We have another question.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Norris Francois. Welcome to DMs on the Streets. What's your name?
Calvin Klein.
All right, Mr. Klein, ask the Prime Minister your question.
The Prime Minister, I have observed that there has been an increase in challenges amongst our youth men, such as drug abuse and violence. I would like to know what plans are put in place to mitigate these problems as we strive for a positive youth development.
Thank you, Calvin, for your question. You have a very
Calvin
famous
Klein.
name, Calvin Klein. So yes, we are, like you, always concerned about the impacts of violence and drug misuse or abuse, and our young men in particular. And in a sense, the discussion earlier about the Drug Abuse Control and Prevention Act and the amendment to it is part of the effort to address that. But I would perhaps speak on some of, what are just simply common things that we are doing. A simple thing like ensuring that young men and women do not leave school before they're 18 is part and parcel of addressing this issue, because if you leave school at 16 and then you become unemployed and you don't have the skill set to get a job or the ability to further your education at least up to 18, that's putting you at risk within that 2-year period. And we know what they say about idle hands. It's the devil's workshop. And so a simple policy shift like trying to keep our young men and women in school until 18 is actually designed to give you greater opportunities at succeeding in life, at being able to cope with stress, at having a greater skill set so that you can get a job. We are lighting all of our playing fields. We are grading and improving our football, cricket pitches and so on. We are improving our basketball and tennis courts. We are building an aquatic center. We are doing all of this because we recognize, particularly for young men, that when you're 16, 17, 18, you've got a lot of testosterone, a lot of passion, a lot of energy. And we want to give you the opportunity to channel those things into those areas, into sports, into community, into music, into the creative arts. That is why we've created the Office of the Creative Affairs, so that we can give young people an opportunity, those who are interested in arts, in music, in creative industries, to get those opportunities, whether it's digital media, whether it's radio, whether it's music production. We are starting music schools in St. David's. We have completed the outfitting of a music school. We are bringing in the instruments, and in February we will be launching the music school to give our young men in St. David's the opportunity to be able to learn and play music. We started comms pan, all over the island. Again, it's an opportunity for our young men or young women to learn to play music Because when people are frustrated, music is therapeutic. It helps them to de-stress. It means you're less likely to be violent, etc., etc. We are going to be passing legislation, we hope by the first half of this year, to create YE, the youth economy, a statutory body that will help to empower young men and women as entrepreneurs, to provide mentorship, etc., etc. So we're doing all of this because we recognize simply saying we don't want young men and women to use drugs, or we don't want them to end up as criminals or be violent, is really a wish. But in order to get that wish to come through, we have to be able to follow the policies, put the resources and the programs in to be able to address that. So that's just some of what we're doing. We can probably spend the whole afternoon talking about some of the other initiatives,
So we have to move
but
on.
we have to conclude.
Okay. We have another question.
My name is Summer Peters.
All right, Ms. Peters, as the Prime Minister, your question.
Honorable Prime Minister, does your government have plans to promote stronger political awareness and meaningful participation among young people so that their voices are not only heard but actively influence policy and decision making?
Yes, St. Andrew.
Yes, no, as I said, the students are banging. Thank you so much for the question. The answer is yes, and a program like this is a simple opportunity of us actually promoting greater political awareness amongst our young people. By you having the opportunity to ask direct questions of the Prime Minister every week is a simple, is an exercise in that. And then for us to then have the ability to act on the things that you have raised is a simple opportunity, again, to make sure the citizens understand what representative democracy is about. It was a young lady who called in on the program to talk about Cow Hill, right? It wasn't a senior person, it wasn't an older person in the community. In fact, she recognized that on behalf of her older persons, she needed to take action and to become an activist. And so a program like this is just simply a part of what we're doing. We are teaching Grenadian history in schools because we want our students to understand our history. We want them to develop a sense of nationalism, a sense of pride, to understand their civic duty. When you sing the national anthem, when you recite the Pledge of Allegiance, all of those things are part of what it is we are doing. When we invite you to come to independence, we want you to understand what statehood, what nationhood, what sovereignty is about, how independence was fought and won. So these are just some of the initiatives. When we are talking about creating our national heroes, because we want you to understand that you too could become a national hero if you dedicate your life's work to building your country. So these are just some of the examples of the things that we are doing to make sure that we can ensure that young people become more politically aware, and that they also recognize that they have the opportunity to influence policy and programs. There are lots of other things. The Youth Parliament, for example, is another example. The Youth Ambassadors is another example of some of the things that we are doing. The Ministry of Youth has gone around and have youth caravans where young people, again, come forward and get the opportunity to share their views and ideas and thoughts. But the youth economy is going to be one of the things that we will champion this year, and we think it will be a significant opportunity, again, for young people to share their views and to be able to influence policies of the government.
I think we have another question.
Good day, sir. Dear Honorable Deacon Mitchell, I've been seeing many schools being upgraded, and I'm just here to ask, are there any plans to upgrade my school, the Grenville Secondary School?
She's quite serious about it as well.
Yes, she's representing Grenville Secondary School. I can't answer the question directly. There's a list of schools currently due for renovation. If the school is in need of renovation, I'm sure the Ministry of Education and the team that's responsible for that will bring that to the attention of the Ministry of Infrastructure, and we will certainly get on it. So if it does need renovation, I'm sure in due course it will be attended to.
Okay. We have another question.
Welcome to DMs on the Streets. My name is Norris. What's your name?
My name is Aliza Adonis.
Well, ask the Prime Minister your question.
Dear Prime Minister, as a young lady with 7 experiences, I would like to know if you have any plans to add a new vendors market for the vendors because there is not enough space. Maybe we could reclaim one by the Melbourne Street Fish Market and add a new vendors market.
Okay.
Well, thank you for the question and the suggestion. The answer is yes, we do have plans. In fact, in this year's budget, we have a line item to add new markets. We are hoping to add a new market in Grandance. The government does own some land adjacent to Republic Bank at probably the most heavily trafficked area in Grenada. So the team at MIT and Infrastructure, we are working on this. The government is also working on building vendors' booths and markets in Lassages in the Natural Works area. So that's phase 1 of the renovation of that entire complex that has the old water mill and so on. And thirdly, we are looking at a spot in Calavini on the main road, because there's significant bending on the streets of the road all the way up to Lassages that is already taking place to be able to create a market there. Whether we can reclaim land in Melville Street specifically for a market is something that we obviously will have to consider, but we do recognize that the markets we have, Grenville, Sotes, the Tongue of St. George, Guave, Victoria, old. They've been there for a long time and there has not been any new markets created. So this is something that we are quite keen to address this year.
Okay. And I believe we have our final DM from the street.
My name is Noah Mitchell, and my question to you, Prime Minister, is: are there any plans to implement programs for the more advanced students within the secondary school level, for like students who want to move at a faster pace than the classrooms?
Noah, you have me stumped. I'm going to have to ask the Minister of Education this and come back to you. I certainly understand that if there are students who probably want to go faster, we should be able to have the learning modalities that supports and encourages them to do so. Certainly, I know in some schools you can actually do your CXCs in Form 4. So at least for those who are prepared to do so, that is permitted. But as to whether there's a general policy that supports students who are more advanced and who wish to proceed at a faster pace, I will have to come back perhaps next week with the response after I consult with the Minister of Education.
Wow. Thank you so much to the students of the Grenville Secondary School and the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School. I think they deserve a better close off. They were awesome with their questions.
Awesome. They were awesome. I said they're not joking.
Yeah,
They've started off very well. And I mean, the students obviously are doing an amazing job. And I guess Intercall is coming up as well. So they're prepping both academically and physically as well.
I like that. So big up St. Andrew. We have to take a quick break, but of course, when we come back, we will give you the opportunity to call to ask your questions directly of the Prime Minister. Back in a bit.
It's like the water pure and clean. It's a comfort anytime you need it. It's for everybody, fresh and green. You can count on us, there's nothing like it. It's homegrown. It's island pure. It's homegrown.
Welcome back once again to all our viewers and listeners to DMs with PM. And of course, this is the segment where you get the opportunity to call and ask your questions directly. The number 423-3104, that's 423-3104. And again, we're asking that you keep your questions as brief as possible so that we can accommodate many more calls. All right. So those of you call in, try to condense your questions so we can accommodate as much calls as possible. We have our first caller online. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Arona. Happy New Year to you.
New Year.
Good afternoon, Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Honorable Prime Minister, after being away from my country for 14 years, I came home for Christmas for 2 weeks. And the area where I live, there was no road, but however, the government blessed the people there with a nice little concrete road. But Honorable PM, the people who live in there that has vehicles, the road is very small and they occupy it like if it is a private space. Just as how you're creating laws to ticket people who would be smoking in public places, I think there should be laws that must be implemented for people who uses the road as their private space. When I had to leave Grenada, I had to walk almost a mile with my suitcases because there was no access for the taxi to come to get me because the people in there occupy the road, and it's not fair. It's a use for everyone. So
Okay.
I need the traffic department to do something. Give them
Much, caller.
some
Think we got the
big
gist of it.
tickets.
Thank you, caller.
Yes, thank you. It is a major concern. The use of public property as private property, particularly for the parking of vehicles, is a challenge. One way of dealing with it, obviously, is through law enforcement. A second way, obviously, is actually limiting the number of vehicles that are permitted into the country because we have incapacity issues. A third way is to also try and find some communal parking spaces where people can park and create parking areas for them. I mean, that is one way, but it's probably not going to be very effective simply because we don't have a lot of places where we can do so. So we do recognize it's something that we are going to have to regulate. We're also going to have to ask people to understand. We may have to, during peak hours, have no parking, and at quieter times in the night and so on, permit some limited parking. So it is a challenge, and it is something that I think all of us, the Royal Grenada Police Force, the Transport Commission, the Ministry of Infrastructure is dealing with, ultimately to get to the point where we do have the right policy initiatives so that we can address it.
Okay. We have another caller online. Caller, good evening. Welcome. Go right ahead and please be brief.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening, Honorable Prime Minister Mitchell. My name is Nathalie, and I am a first-generation American. My mother was born and raised in Grenada, and I have been so lucky to return back often. My initial question is around brain drain and incentives for those who leave and go away to school to come back to the island and develop their talent in country versus going abroad to America, Canada, England, and everywhere else instead of going and getting their education and bringing it back home. Is there any incentives for students to do so and young professionals?
Well, yes, there are incentives. I think first and foremost, I think there are job opportunities here. I studied in Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago when I came back to Grenada. And I've worked all my life in Grenada in the private sector and then chose to enter into the public sector. I mean, if we take just the medical profession, for example, there's enormous opportunity, both in the public and private sector, for persons to come back and to want to work here. We have a returning nationals incentives policy that allow citizens of Grenada who go overseas and wish to return to come home. They get exemptions on the items they're importing or bringing back. They have a partial vehicle concession. So these are incentives are available at the incentives desk in the Ministry of Finance. So that is also available. But I think also, it's important for all of us who leave Grenada for education, especially if it was paid for by taxpayers of Grenada through scholarship or through economic costs, to also appreciate that we also should have a moral obligation to try and help build a country. If we only think about ourselves and we leave, then if you are the brightest and the best and you're leaving, it's difficult to then ask those who are not the brightest and the best to then build an economy and to incentivize you to return. So we need our citizens whose education are funded by the state through scholarship, through economic costs, to be able to actually recognize that there is an obligation on them to help build the country as well, and that they can come back to do so. And it doesn't mean now, particularly with technology, that you have to spend all of your time in Grenada. You could perhaps work partly in Grenada, work partly in the international community as well to help us. So certainly we have Project Polaris coming on board. There'd be an enormous opportunity for Grenadians in the medical and professional field to come back and to work in Grenada. I would put it this way, money isn't everything. We certainly want our citizens to have a high standard of living as much as possible, but we also, quality of life matters. Grenada is a peaceful place. You don't have to deal with extreme weather conditions. You don't have to deal with extreme shootings and mass shootings. There are all kinds of things. You don't really have to deal with racism and some of those issues. So we also want to encourage our young men and women who go overseas and study to also consider returning as much as possible to help build the country.
We have another question. Good evening, caller. Welcome, and please be brief.
Hi, good evening. I'm not calling to ask any question. I'm calling in regards of speaking with the Prime Minister. It is an utmost important matter. I would like if you would contact me privately on this number, please and thank you.
Thank you, noted.
Okay. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program. Good Good evening, caller. Okay, so while we await your calls, remember 423-3104. That's the number to call and ask your questions directly of the Prime Minister. So if you have a question, feel free to call. Do we have a caller online? Not as yet? Okay, there was a question I think we needed to ask that we bypassed earlier on. We were speaking about the cannabis law, but before we get to that, I also wanted to make mention of the Lobster and Lamby Festival that was held in Carriacou, and I'm getting so many rave reviews about it. And of course, we're speaking about the Sister Isle, who have been going through quite a lot with burial, etc., rebuilding, and having this initiative. I think it was a really wonderful one. Your thoughts on it, considering you were there?
Yes, no, it's first of all, again, I want to congratulate Carriacou, the Ministry of Carriacou and Petit Martin Affairs, the Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Culture, the Board of Tourism for the concept and for specifically having it in Carriacou and Petit Martinique importantly as well. I think it was an amazing first-time success. Of course, with any new initiative, there would be kinks, but lots of Grenadians went up. I didn't spend a lot of time on Sunday. I went to Ansler Roach and to Paradise Beach, and both venues are spectacular. This may sound difficult to believe, but Carriacou and Petit Martinique is more beautiful now than ever before. So sometimes out of darkness comes light, and I think this festival I think is going to become a premier marquee event in the Grenadine Islands, and I would certainly encourage those who missed it this year. Next year, I'm sure it will become an annual event. To certainly book early. We do know that Carriacou has the challenge of accommodation if large numbers come. We think it's an opportunity for someone to continue investing, both Caracas and Grenadians, to invest in accommodation in Carriacou, because we certainly think the tourism industry in Carriacou is going to grow from strength to strength. So congratulations. There was lots of lobster, lots of food on Sunday in particular when I was there. So for Grenadians who've never visited Carriacou, put this on your calendar and make it an event. And there's kayak mass coming up as well. So again, it's another opportunity to go back and to partake in that as well.
Fantastic. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program. Go right ahead.
Hi, good evening, Honorable Prime Minister. Good evening, Ms. Neptune.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There are a lot of issues surrounding license and inspection of vehicles and driver's license, but I just want to raise one issue. Let's say Ms. Neptune there is interested in engaging in taxi services, and she imports, let's say, a Toyota Noah to Grenada to do that service. What happens on the port is that she will have to license that vehicle as a private vehicle, then go to one of the tinting places to get a decal that says the number of persons that she can carry, and they turn the gross, and then go up to the fire station to get that vehicle re-inspected to get the Hyatt or the H number plate. So in that process, she has actually paid twice, once for the P license plate, and once for the H license plate, which I call state-sponsored abuse, because I believe that that process could be simple and less expensive for citizens having to pay twice for the same vehicle just to get an H license. So, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm asking that you really need to look into the license and inspection apparatus in the state and see how you can make it easier for regular citizens who really want to be entrepreneurs, etc., in the taxi service business. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that. If what you describe happens, it seems very odd to me, but it is something that I will certainly look into. I do think a licensing regime is probably quite dated as well. We have taken some tactical steps over the last couple of years to address some of the issues that the public has raised about the licensing system and the ability to move from one class to the next. But it may be an opportune time to have a holistic overall review of the entire regime to modernize it and simplify it.
Okay. We have another caller. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead with your question.
Good evening. My name is Francis Zappa Edwards. I called on the last episode of, I was calling in regards to my citizenship papers that the Prime Minister asked me to leave my information, but I still haven't gotten any information.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't get a caller's name, but
What's
if the information was submitted, then I would look into it. I assume over the Christmas break and the holiday break.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will look into it.
Okay. Can you resend your information, please, to the WhatsApp number?
Okay, I will resend the information.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. We have another call online? No? Okay. Another quick question, though, so PM. In terms of the legislation, right? What is the government strategy to ensure the public fully understands the new legal boundaries, especially what is legal versus illegal?
Right. So it's important to emphasize that we have an actual cannabis secretariat established within the Ministry of Agriculture. They are based at the National Stadium. And so they are the team of persons who are primarily responsible for ensuring that the public education, the public consultation, and the PR surrounding what is and isn't illegal takes place. The RGPF is a member, has a member on that, as well as the chief medical officer. So both from a health and a law enforcement perspective, we have persons there. We have persons from the Rastafarian community on it. We have persons from the mental health and wellness community from it. And so the goal really is to make sure that that commission continues the PR and the public education surrounding this, because we don't just want people to hear from the politicians, because then sometimes people think it's politicized. But I'm also heartened by the fact that it's almost historic, because thus far there have been very few bills passed in the Law House where both the opposition, the government, and the independent member all voted in support of the bill. So I'm heartened by the fact that that has happened, which suggests to me that the collective leadership of the country also recognize that we have a collective responsibility as well to help with the PR, which is why I've in a sense, went into such detailed responses to the questions you posed, so that the public clearly understands what is and isn't permitted. And so there will be heightened PR and public education about this. We will also ensure that, particularly in schools, because I think even on one of these shows, when this issue came up previously, principals and so on expressed concerns that young men may feel that they have the right to smoke when they're in schools and so on. And we have to make it clear that they do not. And until you're 21, if you do, there will be consequences, right? We obviously are not going to try and turn you into a criminal, but certainly the counseling, the education, and so on that comes with making sure you understand the consequences of your behavior and its impact on your life is going to be something that we are obviously going to spend a lot of time educating our young men and women about.
What about law enforcement? Will they be trained to adapt to the new amendment?
No, absolutely, and that's why from day one we had a senior member of the RGPF as part of the committee, so that so even when the bill is passed, there will be significant stakeholder consultation about the actual implementation of the bill, so that the public is aware and we understand what the do's and don'ts are.
Okay. We have a caller online. Caller, good evening. Go right ahead with your question.
Good evening. I don't have a question, but I just called to say Happy New Year to you and to my Prime Minister. I wish him all the best for 2026, and I hope he continue to do what he has to do for Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. I'm watching him now. He's smiling. My Prime Minister, Happy New Year to you, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for making me smile.
Thank you, caller. We have another caller online. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program. Go right ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. First, I want to say good night to the PM. Good night, Mr. Deacon.
Good night.
I do applaud you for all the great things that you're doing for Grenadians, not just Grenada and the whole Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. First of all, I want to ask you a question. When I was a young girl at the age of 16, my grandmother had glaucoma, and I realized that the only thing can heal her was herb. So I gave her herb, and by the end of 3 months, she was glaucoma free. When I myself had cancer 10 years ago, lung cancer, I found out how to make THC oil, and I made the oil with my husband. And I also was cancer free after 4 years with chemo and radiation. Don't get me wrong, chemo and radiation are good, but it also caused a lot of side effects on the body. I also found out after another cancer, which is a lung cancer that spread after chemo and radiation. After making THC oil, I also had been cured myself to 4 other people from the THC oil. My question I'm asking tonight is, how can I get a license and I can help so much young people who have cancer in the
All right, so thank you for the question. We're not quite there yet with the licensing for the THC, and I'm happy you've called, and I want to make sure that we explain that. So the next step that we are about to embark upon is in fact to engage in things like the public consultations, to have persons like yourself get the opportunity to talk about their experiences, to see what it is they've done, what it is they experience, so that we can then craft the right policy to create the licensing regime so that persons like you who wish to engage in the creation of products from the marijuana plant can go about doing so in a safe and regulated environment. Now, I want to use you as an example. If we are making oils from a plant which we intend to use for medicinal purposes, we have to make sure that it is well regulated. We have to make sure that it is done in a safe and proper environment because all medicines have downsides. And therefore, we have to ensure that if someone is authorized to sell any type of oil or marijuana-based product, that they would have gone through a rigorous testing process, that the place where they're making it is clean, it's safe, sanitation standards are being met, etc., so that we can ensure that when the products are on the market, you as the seller or the vendor don't face any kind of challenges from persons who buy the products and so on. So we have to realize, just as how we regulate any other business where things are made, from vendors who sell food on the side of the road, you have to have a licensing system, to persons who sell alcohol or tobacco or food or anything else. It will be a similar process. So we're just asking for persons to be patient because, again, we recognize the importance of this, whether it's a food-based industry, a medicinal-based industry, or wellness industry, that we have to develop the right laws, the right regulations to be able to facilitate the growth and development of the industry. So that's the next phase upon which we'll be embarking. The Cannabis Commission will lead that phase, and I'm sure once this bill is passed, they will then inform the public of when and where the consultations are going to be taking place so that persons like you can attend and give your input, and so that we can move quickly to the next stage of being able to create the licensing regime for you to make things like the oil that you've talked about.
We have our final call online. Caller, good evening. Welcome to the program. Go right ahead.
Good evening. Happy New Year to you and the PM and Prime Minister and your family. Yeah, I would like to know how soon would we have the program for the athletes, the stipend for the athletes, and part of the food security. We're talking about the fish scenario. Can we add that to the food support, the food feeding program, added value, and add that to the food for the children in school, added value for the state as a whole, you know, and that would be a nice program with the MMIB food saga. If we can solve that problem by bringing in the food, the fishes to help with the seed program, people, the elderly and seniors not able to get good nutrition, and that would help with the food situation. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, I didn't quite understand the first question in relation to the athletes. So I'm not sure the caller is still online. Is he? Caller, can you clarify the first question relating to the athletes? Okay, I think he's probably gone. But certainly from the point of view of school nutrition, we want to use as much local products as possible, and having local fish as part of the diet and a source of protein is something that certainly we will commend and encourage. You know, I was speaking to a young school child today, and I was asking her what sort of food she eats at school, and she indicated to me that she used to bring food to school, but now she doesn't because she gets food at school. And I asked her, do you know why you get food at school? And she said no. I said, because the government initiated the school feeding program and is paying for the meals that you eat. And so she didn't know that. So I said to her, well, now you know, and you have the opportunity to explain to your fellow kids, fellow students, that this is in fact what the case is. So we certainly think local procurement of meat and fish is one of the key things that obviously we want to encourage, and the Ministry of Education, I'm sure, is keen on this. We're also looking at whether we can do more centralized kitchens, so there can be greater control over the nutrition content and quality of the food. And the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council has an instrumental role to play in ensuring that we have a more balanced and nutritious diet in schools. So yes, we do believe that the food security and the ability to use our fish, even if for now fish can't be exported, is one such way of ensuring that fish becomes a mainstay of our diet.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have this week. And of course, we are looking forward to many more Tuesdays like this and to give you the opportunity to ask your questions directly. So before we go, PM, final word to the listeners and viewers.
Well, as we said, we are not going to be slackening the pace. We're also going to have a very aggressive parliamentary agenda to pass legislation to enact policies that are for the betterment of the people of Grenada. I want to emphasize, because I've done a couple of media interviews in January, and I think everyone has been asking me, why have I not been more vocal on issues pertaining to the United States? And I've said to people, you know, I'm the Prime Minister of Grenada, not the Prime Minister or the President of the United States. So my focus is to focus on things that impact or affect Grenada. And so it's important for us to appreciate that sometimes if you go through difficult moments, you have to think long term. We have to make sure that our foreign policy is a policy that is in the best interest of Grenada. And I've said this repeatedly, that means our approach is to try and be friends with all countries. There are times when we will have to navigate the challenges of policy matters that we have difference of views of with countries. But that doesn't mean that there's a deterioration in the diplomatic relationship or the partnership relationship with countries. That is just the normal ebb and flow of foreign relations. Sometimes you have big disagreements on particular issues. You address those issues diplomatically, not publicly. That's not the approach of our government. That's not, we don't think it's wise. And so sometimes, yes, people may be impatient and they want you to respond immediately when they see things in the media. But it's important to emphasize that sometimes you see things in the media and there is no official communication to the government. And we can only respond when we have official communication to the government if it warrants a public response. So I want to assure the public that we will always act in the best interests of Grenada, even if we are faced with difficult decisions. And that when there is credible, fact-based information to present to the public, we will certainly do so. And if we have to make any decisions, or if we make decisions, either prior to the implementation of the decisions or when those decisions are made, we will communicate it to the public in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm. And that is indeed a wonderful way to end, because I'm sure that has been on a lot of folks' mind, you know, the issues that has been popping up from time to time in the media, and of course the responses to it. So thank you so much for that. And also thank you so much to our stations, Power FM, Star FM, We FM, GBN, Fusion FM, Vibes FM, to our viewers on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so very much for tuning in again. Season 3 of DMs with PM. And of course, we're looking forward to having you back for another interactive program next Tuesday, same time, same place. Thank you so much, technical team, and to everyone who made this week's show possible. And want to wish everyone a wonderful evening and, of course, the rest of the week. See you again for another one.